It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. Today on the program, Cinco de Mayo is coming up, and that means a lot of festivities in Detroit. We'll discuss the holiday's origins and what it means to people here in the city.
But first on the Metro, artificial intelligence has a lot of creators worried. They think it may render their work irrelevant as algorithms create things instead of these artists. These discussions have been hot in the world of journalism, academia, science, and, as we mentioned, art. But there are plenty of people in these fields who are working to embrace artificial intelligence and to incorporate it in their work. This month, Hatch Art in Hamtramck will host a new art event titled AI and the Creator, Is It Art? The show starts tomorrow night at 6 p.m. and runs through May 26th at 3456 Eveline Street. To talk about the show and the intersection of artificial intelligence and art is Judy Bomarito. She is an adjunct instructor at the College for Creative Studies, a fine art photographer, and most importantly for this conversation, an AI creator. She's curating the art for this Hamtramck show. Judy, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting topic to get in. We've discussed AI a lot in a lot of different fields. I've heard about it in terms of art, but we really haven't had a chance on the show to dive into that. So before we get into this show, let's just talk about how AI art is generated in the first place. I mean, how are you doing this? Are you using Midjourney? Do you type in prompts? How does it work?
Yeah, I use Midjourney. It's my tool that of choice. A lot of people use a lot of different tools, but for me, my work is really evocative. It's very emotionally driven, so I don't get the final result from Midjourney as a whole. I take a lot of pieces and then I generate them, take those pieces into Photoshop to get my creative final conclusion.
So just to put a pin on this then, Midjourney, it's a program, a chatbot like a lot of us use, except it's used for images. So you'll type in maybe a description of what you want to see. It'll give you something, and then you'll take and iterate these different images or whatever, go in Photoshop and make the final copy?
That's correct. And so I think that also my photographic background helps me to navigate the tool a little bit better. So I feel that it is definitely a collaboration between the technology and the person. It's not replacing the person. So it's a collaboration on what you know. For example, I did something one day where I was generating, just for an example, the style of Picasso, woman standing in a field of dandelions. It did not give me what we imagine it to be as a cubist render. It was just this painting of a woman standing. But when I said cubism style, it then gave me something a little more what we're familiar Picasso to be. So it wasn't stealing or per se Picasso's work. It was stealing the idea, taking the idea and creating something new from it.
All right, well, you're getting into this idea of theft and appropriation of content, and I will get there in just a moment. But before we ask that question, I am kind of interested how you even decided to get into artificial intelligence or AI as a way of creating art in the first place, because you have a background, obviously, photography, doing other things. Why did you decide to transition into AI art?
I'm in a group with a couple other people who are actually in the show, and we meet every couple weeks on the phone, and one of my friends started telling me about what he was doing with it, and I just jumped right on it, and I was fascinated at how people received my work because, like I said, my work has a very soulful approach to it. And not once did somebody say that looks generated. They say that looks like an extension of your art. So I believe that the word prompts that I use are very important to get the result. So somebody else would get something more reflective of their soul or their art. So
part of the skill for you is generating that prompt in the first place. Then you also mentioned the work that you put in on the back end with editing and Photoshop.
Yeah.
Collaging. That's a great word. I'm going to add that to my vocabulary. But you were touching on it that some are concerned about this new process. They say, look, the way programs like Midjourney learned how to generate art in the first place was based on looking at millions upon millions of gigabytes of data of other people's work, and then creates or is inspired by it, uses amalgamations of it. They might claim even directly appropriates it. And that way, the tool is actually the AI creating the art, not the artist. If anything, it might be theft. What do you say to those folks?
Yeah, I think that is a myth. I believe that we've had appropriation artists around for hundreds of years. I could go back to fourth century BC when the camera obscura was invented to create and mimic what we see in our landscape for the painters. So it's not something that's new. This idea of trying to mimic or create something that's already exists is just timeless. And so I think that this is just our next step in the technological process. The idea of the camera was supposedly going to take away. The painters were revolting against it, saying this mechanical tool could never take the place of the painter. The digital camera, of course, then replaced film cameras, and everybody said the same thing. This is never going to happen. So now we're taking this next leap, and we are now, like you said, collecting all this data of 1 million or billion images to create one thing that is essentially new. If I say I have a woman holding an umbrella, did you create that photograph? Are you the only person that created that photograph, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's been done. Nothing is really original. Everything has been done over and over again. An appropriation artist will take the actual image, whereas AI is taking millions of images that it's kind of saying is that woman walking with the umbrella or holding the umbrella, and combining them to create something that's not really ever existed before.
Yeah, we're speaking with the curator of an event on AI creations, Judy Bomarito, that's going to be happening in Hamtramck. Before we get into the event, I do want to ask another question off of this, because I do agree, right? Like, artists, we're all inspired by things we've seen before, right? The idea there's any completely original work, I don't think many artists would tell you that's true.
Right.
But artists also want to work and eat. And I know there's concern with AI that you might just start getting people or fewer people generating a bunch of content. Maybe it starts getting worse and worse, right? Dumping out garbage into the world. Do you have any concerns about that with opening up this avenue in AI art?
Yeah, I do, because I believe that if anybody remembers the digital era, there's a lot of stuff that happened back then. A lot of people perceived themselves as now being an artist because it became, if we will, easier and more accessible for people. And I believe the same thing to be true with AI. But I do think that it's more important for the true artist to stand on the front line here and really dig in deep and embrace this as a tool, as opposed to retreating. Because if we, as a group of veteran artists, retreat, who's going to take that spot? Because it's not going away. So I believe it's our responsibility to maintain the forefront of this and use it as the rightful tool that it is, so that we combined can maintain the aesthetic quality that we're used to in our society. Because if we don't, what's going to happen? Other people are going to take that spot. It's not going to go away.
One way you're trying to do that is with this new event that's going to be happening that we just mentioned. For those who have a chance to check it out, or tell us, why should somebody check out this event starting out tomorrow night at 6 p.m., running until May 26th? AI and the Creator, Is It Art?
Thank you.
Yeah, tell me about it. What are people going to see at the event? Why should they go check it out?
Yeah, we have 9 different artists here, myself included. I have a few things that I'm working on a healing deck of cards, which are very evocative and emotionally impactful. And so my work is an extension of that. The title of my work is called The Hug, which is sort of the dichotomy of what the AI tool is. And also, as we've just gone through the pandemic in our 6-foot space, so now I'm using the technology to embrace both physically and metaphorically. Another artist is doing a series on the Green Book. He's traveling around different locations where Black tourists were able to use this book as a safe haven during the late 50s and early 60s. And he's revisiting and also creating a narrative using AI. And I think that series is pretty powerful. Another one of my artists is using the AI tool as a metaphor for his the frontier, the western frontier, as he thinks it as a metaphor right now, with the AIs being a new frontier for us to explore. And I have a couple painters that are using AI as reference tools, just simply to eliminate creative block and just to keep them inspired, although in the end result, they do paint. One of them is using the imperfections generated by AI as part of a metaphor for the situation of our society right now.
Sure.
So she's including those imperfections in her art. I have another artist who is a graphic designer who uses her AI to make geometric patterns and textiles and objects.
Let me jump in here just a bit because you mentioned some of the items you're creating, and I think from looking at some of the AI-generated art I've seen, not only from you, but others, a lot of things. You see some powerful colors. You see some really interesting ways that images are incorporated into each other. For example, you mentioned that hugging series. I'm looking at an image right now where it looks kind of like you see the back of a person and then an individual hugging him, but it's just the arm. And then it kind of flows into a tree. Right.
Yes.
And so this is in a way that I could see someone painting it if they wanted to. But, we've also seen what some might call errors generated by AI art, right? You'd see like a picture of the Pope with like the sixth finger or something.
For sure.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
know, oh, well, that must have been generated by AI. So what I want to know is when it comes to your creative process, right, versus trying to draw something out or just think of it all in your mind versus kind of having this call and response with AI, as you mentioned, telling it to generate something, maybe it pumps out of a mistake and then you're like, no, I want to go with that. Where does the creative line between you and the AI change, or where is that line for you when you think about that process?
Yeah, for me, I think I have a specific idea in mind, although I'm open to the directions that are new and in front of me. But I don't consider those a final thing. Like the pieces that you're mentioning about the hug that you see, those were taken into Photoshop, and then I worked with opacities and different textures. I added other layers and textures to it because I have a certain vision that has to become the final piece, although it can be intuitive because it can arise mid-experimental.
All right. Well, if you want to see those iterations and that intuition, you can check it out. As I said, tomorrow evening, Judy Bomarito, fine art photographer, AI creator with the College for Creative Studies. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
This is the Metro. You just heard from Nick Austin, a cool conversation about AI art. I'm Tia Graham. Coming up, we'll talk about an interesting local fashion brand that's expanding in Livonia. They'll get out into the community with an open house next week. We'll learn more about that coming up next. You all stay right there.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WTET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. The fashion industry is more than just clothes you wear. It's the way of life. It's a way that moves culture. The owners of a local fashion brand were about to speak about what is more than a production house. They want to celebrate and serve a variety of markets. Studious Monday is a boutique garment production facility in Livonia. They work in the fields of pre-production, brand development, and they've also designed and created a new fashion line. Next week, Studious Monday invites the community out to learn more about their new changes and the work that's being done in the production house. So, here to tell us a little bit more about what's going on, we have Nawal Al-Saeed, and she's the founder and CEO of Studious Monday. Nawal, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Awesome. I can feel it. And then Chrissy Huffman-Carter, she is the new COO and the head of apparel at Studious Monday. Chrissy, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excited to be here. So, Noah, you all have gone through a rebrand. I remember 2 years ago I spoke with you on Culture Shift. Totally, it just feels like a 180 almost. So tell us about Studious Monday and who you are now.
So Studious Monday is, still very much grounded and still very much devoted to its values of sustainability, niche markets, minority, diversity, inclusion, empowerment, representation, creativity, innovation. These are all, points and values that are still very much a part of the company. But what we did do is that we pivoted and we added a branch to the company where we are now supporting domestic manufacturing as a whole. So we are producing in-house as opposed to contracting our productions internationally or abroad, where we want to make our products, we want to make our apparel here in Detroit. So the last year, that's essentially what we've done. We've just pivoted, re-strategized, reinvested into the company, into equipment, into building a staff, pattern makers, sample makers, sewers, where we can keep our design and development and production here at home.
Which I love that so much. It's one of the things that I've been learning about within the fashion industry, just talking to professors from CCS or just talking to different people across the fashion industry. It's the growing of domestic manufacturing, I guess you can say, in terms of fashion production. So Chrissy, as the new COO, in what ways do you see this company expanding, especially with everything that Noel just talked about?
Well, first of all, we switched from getting manufacturing from outside of our house, and we focused on our brand and what we want our brand to do, which is reflect, Noel's community, which is the hijabi women, and also my community, which is the African American woman. So just focusing on what we want our brand to represent as far as like political views and social views. And I think with my leadership taking over, we've been able to do that.
Which I've noticed when I look through the Instagram and different posts and stuff, you can definitely see that it is being run by women of color. It's being run by women who want to see themselves represented, but also see their communities represented. So to both of you, just like you just said, with the diverse backgrounds, in which way do you see these diverse minds helping to expand the reach of Studious Monday, just based on who you all are as people? So we're going to start with you, Noel.
So, we both offer a unique perspective on apparel making and apparel design. I think, I know that we have cultural touch points in a market, in a social stratosphere that has yet to be undiscovered. And I think that's what Chrissy and I are going to do. We are going to bring it forward. We are going to represent. And you'll see creativity and you'll see innovation from us, because that is what women of color do, and that is what we bring to the table.
Chrissy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both bring such a unique, different, first of all, style-wise, we bring a unique, different type of style. But also I think that there's a beauty in that, that our designs can be innovative. Yeah, to reflect both of us and what we both want.
And, Chrissy, just knowing a little bit about your background, you're a seamstress, you know, there's so many different creative things that you're doing and you can do. I just think about both of you talking about innovation and technology. And we just had a conversation about AI and art. And I'm thinking about how technology is being used in your production house to expand the reach of fashion. So, Chrissy, if you could go into some of the things that are in the production house that are, the technology.
Okay, so we actually have a laser cutter. So that allows us to cut patterns directly from a computer anywhere. You can email us a pattern and we're able to just go ahead and cut it with our laser cutter, which is pretty cool and a really great way of being sustainable. And this laser cutter also has software where it maps out how much of the fabric you're using. So, you don't have to waste so much fabric anymore.
This is cool. This sounds so cool to me.
It's very cool. It looks like something from Star Wars, actually.
May the 4th be with you.
Yes.
Tomorrow, by the way. Yes. So I just once again love hearing about the technology that you all have been able to use and bring into the community and bring to manufacturing here in the city of Detroit, or Livonia actually, but the greater Detroit
Metro
area.
Detroit area.
Yeah, Metro Detroit area. So Noah, just thinking about this reintroduction to the Livonia community, what will this look like, especially as we talk about Livonia and the idea that it's not diverse, or this idea of it being this one monolithic thing when it's actually not true at all. So in what ways do you want to get in and reintroduce yourselves to that community?
I think the open house is a great start. I also, when I was getting the certificate of occupancy for the space, I was at the city of Livonia, and I was wearing one of our products that we had made. And the clerk was like, "That is such a cute bag." And I was like, "Yeah, we made it here in Livonia." She's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that is what I'm applying for. I am applying for a C of O for a maker space and a production space here in Livonia." She's like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. We've always needed something like that." I'm like, "Well, that's who we are, and that's what we're going to do." So, I think it's just a matter of just introductions and creating events and creating awareness on social media. And also, like Chrissy and I, actually, one of our first meetings together as CEO and COO was just knocking on people's doors and showing our faces. I think showing our faces, her beautiful face, my beautiful
Both
face.
of your beautiful faces.
Both of our beautiful faces to our neighbors and to the greater community. I think that in itself is going to just change the game.
Yeah, once again, representation matters. And if you see someone who looks like you, or looks like your mom or aunt or cousin or sister, whomever it may be, you're a little bit more willing to support and help out. But not just that, just seeing women in general. As a woman, I'm just like, you know what, I'm a support. Yeah. So, Chrissy, just go into the open house a little bit more. I mean, people get to come and see the laser cutter.
Yes, so we are going to have a laser cutting demonstration, and also just going back to technology and how we're using it. We do plan on using wearable technology in our garments. So we actually have like a pocket that charges your phone. We have a bag that lights up when you open it. So you'll be able to see those too.
You have to take me out the game.
Yeah.
A pocket that charges.
Yeah,
Yes.
So we have some prototypes that we've been working on.
Yeah.
So we are going to be demonstrating those prototypes. It's part of our catalog that we will be dropping. It's for our in-house brand, functional youth apparel, essentially. So we're going to be doing several demonstrations, like Chrissy said. So, every part of our space. So we have like our accessories space, we have our sewing space, we have our pattern making, we have our cutting tables, we have the laser cutter. We're going to do like a structured tour.
Yeah, overall, we just want to reintroduce ourselves to everyone, to the community, to the fashion community, to our communities.
I love
the
this
overall point.
so very much. I want to get into it so much more. We've run up on time here, but the open house is actually on May 9th from 5 to 7 p.m. It is a pop-up shop at the facility, as you just heard, and Studious Monday is located 27597 Schoolcraft Road. That is in Livonia. Nawal Al-Saeed, founder and CEO of Studious Monday, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
And Chrissy Huffman-Carter, new COO and head of apparel at Studious Monday. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's the Metro on 1019 WDET. That was Tia Graham. I am Nick Austin here with you, and a holiday that many of us enjoy celebrating, whether or whether not you have roots in Mexican-American history, or Mexican history, I should say specifically, is coming up, and we're looking forward to that. In fact, It is Cinco de Mayo this Sunday, but while many Americans often associate the holiday with parties, at its core, the date commemorates a significant event in Mexican history. To learn more about that history and the significance of the day, we're joined by Professor Reyna Esquivel-King, an assistant professor of history at Wayne State University. Professor, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm very excited to be here to discuss Cinco de Mayo with you.
All right. Well, I am excited as well. And hey, let's not bury the lead then. At its core, what is Cinco de Mayo? What's it celebrating specifically?
Okay, so Cinco de Mayo, a little bit of history here. Cinco de Mayo is a holiday that celebrates the victory of the Mexicans at the city of Puebla. They defeated the French. I know few people don't realize that the French actually occupied Mexico from 1863 to around 1867 when Benito Juarez, the liberal, took up the presidency. So the Battle of Puebla is important because it does show a stand-up to fight imperialism and colonialism. Just a little bit about Mexico before then, they actually went through two wars. Of course, they went through the War of North American Aggression or the Mexican-American War, based on who you talk to, the name,
Right?
right? And so they had gone through that and lost a lot of territory. And then after that war, they went into another war called the War of the Reform, which is pitted liberals who were more for freedom of religion, separation of church and state, and liberal in the sense of free market. So not socially liberal. I do want to make that clear. And they were pitted against the conservatives, who were more the old order, the military, people who really supported the church.
Yeah.
And so they had been going through that battle. So they're really war-torn at this point. And so when Puebla comes, what happened is the Mexican government said, hey, we can't pay our debts to the Europeans. And they put a moratorium on that. And so the French are one of the Europeans they owed money to. So they get very upset, and then they decide to invade Mexico. And so they go...
Wait, the French invaded because they didn't get their money.
Yes,
At
yes.
its core, man, humans have always been humans throughout time. But go ahead.
Yes, I mean, yes. This is all about money
Right.
here. And so the French had loaned Mexico some money after independence, and they wanted it back. And Mexico, after going through these wars, losing a lot, almost over 70% of their land, they're in a lot of trouble. So they say, we can't pay it back. So the French invade, and Puebla, there's only about 4,000 people to this huge French army that's been militarily trained. And the people at Puebla defeat the French on Cinco de Mayo, 1862. And it's just a huge victory because it's like the little guy won out, right? Now, the French are then defeated, and they retreat for a whole year. And they do come back in 63, and they are successful in taking over Mexico until 67. And it's at that point that the liberals set up an ad hoc government under Benito Juarez in the north, and then the French set up in Mexico City, and it's the liberals that fight against the French. And finally, after the Civil War is completed in the U.S., the U.S. is able to give money and arms to the Mexicans to then kick out the French.
Oh, my gosh. Well, that is a heck of a story there. You know, it's interesting, though. If I think of Cinco de Mayo, it's really the holiday, maybe other than Dia de los Muertos here, that I think about in our country. How significant is Cinco de Mayo, though, in Mexico in terms of other holidays? And then I'll ask you about how it's celebrated there as well.
Sure. That's a good question. So Mexico itself, like the federal government doesn't consider it a federal holiday. Like people still work. It's only celebrated really in Puebla, and in the state of Veracruz, they have a holiday. Now, schools are closed, things like that, and it's acknowledged, but it's not like anything big, huge like Independence Day, which is September 16th. Which people confuse very often. I hear like, oh, happy Mexican Independence Day. I'm like, no, that Mexican independence happened several decades before Cinco de Mayo. So yeah, I definitely want to make that clear. But so in Mexico, it is celebrated, but not nearly as much as it's been exported to the United States. In fact, Mexican miners who worked in California heard about the battle, shot off rifles, were very excited. And in fact, in California, it's been celebrated pretty regularly since 1863. Solidifying it really as more of a Mexican-American holiday, more than a Mexican holiday itself.
All right.
And it's also been an opportunity for people of other Latinx people in the community to celebrate too, and to celebrate with all of us. Even though it is a Mexican holiday, people of the Latinx community join in as well. And we see it celebrated in Canada and Australia as well.
Oh, wow. So in terms of how we have the celebrations here, though, now it's been exported. Mexican-American cultures really ringing big in Cinco de Mayo. How does it become as big up here in the north, and what are local celebrations that you're aware of that you can share with us?
Sure. Well, one local celebration is, of course, Southwest Detroit. Right. Mexican Town is having their huge celebration, their Cinco de Mayo parade tomorrow. So that's one thing I do want to put out there. Detroit is great. Mexican Town has come out and had wonderful celebrations of Cinco de Mayo. But really, yeah, it's the Mexican-American community, especially starting in California and then having it spread further. And it really picked up importance during the Chicano power movement, which started in the 1940s and 50s, and of course came through the 60s and the 70s that culminated within the civil rights movement. So that's when people started really taking pride in being Chicano and celebrating this holiday where the little guy won out. Like, Mexicans were able to defeat, the Europeans, imperialism. It really set a precedent there. Even though the French came back, it set them back a whole year, which is something to say. Yeah. And so that's how it gets celebrated here. And yeah, there's celebration. I mean, every bar in the area has Cinco de Mayo celebrations, right? Beer specials, tequila specials. If you get tequila, if you want good tequila, make sure it's from Jalisco.
Good to know.
There you go. Make sure it's from the state of Jalisco, because they have the best tequila. I don't partake in drinking anymore, but
fair enough.
Have in the past.
Right.
That's all in the past. But I've definitely celebrated Cinco de Mayo a few times. But I do hope everyone does enjoy the holiday. And now you all have a little bit of history.
Yeah,
to understand it.
And now I'm looking forward to actually knowing what I'm celebrating about next time for Cinco de Mayo. So, Professor Reyna Esquivel-King of Wayne State University, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much, and I'm happy to come back anytime, and I hope everyone enjoys their Cinco de Mayo.
I just might take you up on that.
Great.
This is the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. Nick Austin with another cool conversation. Coming up, we'll talk about a new art exhibit highlighting the beauty of 7 Mile and Illinois. You stay right there.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET. I'm Nick Austin.
And I'm Tia Graham. 7 Mile in Illinois is the home of Detroit's avenue of fashion, thriving businesses that line the streetscape with an array of shops and mostly Black-owned shops. But one thing that is often lost when talking about the rich culture of Detroit is its vibrant, bright, and welcoming arts community. From music to fashion to portraits and street art, the city is a place where creatives can thrive. Tiff Massey is one of those creatives. She produces jewelry, sculptures, performances, videos, and music, as well as a broader theme there, immersive arts environments. She also is the first Black woman to earn a Master of Fine Arts in Metalsmithing from the Cranbrook Academy of Art. This Sunday, Massey is opening the exhibit Tiff Massey, 7 Mile in Illinois, featuring new sculptures commissioned by the DIA in conversation with works by several other artists from the museum's collection. To discuss this now, we have Tiff Massey here. Tiff, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me. What up, though?
What up, though? So you grew up on 7 Mile in Livernois. I'm a West Sider as well. What was that like for you?
It was amazing. I mean, I didn't know that my neighbors weren't my aunts and uncles because it was this familial, aspect to just growing up on the block that I, was on. And so everybody kind of looked out for everyone. There was a lot of children to play with. And actually, that's around that time we would have like black club parties. And that's probably the first time that I started selling jewelry.
Which is so amazing to even think about. I often talk about the love I had growing up with block parties and club and shutting the street down and just being in the street with everyone else, bringing cotton candy trucks and all that fun stuff. But, just having that experience growing up, how do you say that translated into your art, especially as you just, grew and grew?
Well, Detroit and Detroiters, when we go outside, it's a level of sauce. We really take our time. We pay attention. We do a lot of shopping to, adorn ourselves. We want to be seen. Every last one. Every one of us thinks that, we are a celebrity in our own right. And so there's just a lot of style that you just see all the time. And it's a lot of things that get overlooked. It's a lot of things that actually get appropriated when a lot of Detroiters have to leave the city to basically pursue their ambitions. And so the origins of this sauce sometimes gets misconstrued, and a lot of people don't know that it is from the D.
Techno music is one of those things I think about.
Man, yes. Well, I mean, techno just got the UNESCO designation in Germany and Berlin, and they didn't even recognize Detroit, which is crazy.
That's absolutely insane, especially when you think about that time and hear about all the artists back then who said, hey, we got this sound from Detroit. And it's just like, oh, okay, thanks for the recognition. But, one of the things that really stuck out to me that I was reading up on you is you talk about ancestral flyness. And, what does that mean?
Well, it's the diaspora, really, is where I'm tapping, the source of inspiration is the motherland. And so it's really how, we've been dispersed all over the continent. And, it's just tapping back into the origins of that, and then how I'm utilizing these contemporarily. And then also it's how, Detroiters contemporarily, tap into the diasporic floss as well.
Which, if you can just give a few examples of that, because one of the things that stuck in my mind was gators. I thought about the gator culture and the idea of that being a Detroit fashion statement, a symbol. And I'm assuming that it's coming from up south, coming up through the Great Migration, but I'm not sure. But I just think about certain staples like that. What are some things that stand out to you that are like uniquely Detroit?
Well, we're the hair capital of the world. And so like a lot of the celebrities that you see are, their heads are being adorned by Detroit hairstylists. So I would have to say that that's one of the other things that we contribute is hairstyles.
Well, which is something that, once again, I didn't even think about until you just said that. And I thought about Beyonce's hair for the Super Bowl. And I said, that wig was done by a Detroiter. So that is true. So Tiff Massey, I think about your exhibit 7 Mile in Livernois. Of course, you grew up in that area, but why are you deciding to do an entire exhibit at the DIA, titled Tiff Massey, 7 Mile Livernois?
Well, I wanted Detroiters to understand that this is for us. I mean, there's been a lot of gentrification. There's been a lot of other artists from the outside who haven't been necessarily highlighted, and we have a lot of sauce here. And I just wanted people to know off rip, like, what it was giving. And I am a Black artist, and usually that is how Black Detroit basically will tell you where they're from. They'll give you like 2 intersections, and 7 Mile Livernois is very, very popular. There's a lot of opulence, there's a lot of wealth, there's a lot of fashion, there's a lot of flyness sauce.
It is. It's just, you drive through that area, you drive down Livernois, you just kind of feel immersed in Black culture and in Black Detroit culture. So, what's it like to be recognized or to recognize your city in such a large place, in a large space, in the way that you have been able to and are going to this Sunday?
It really feels good to put on and represent for the city. I think Detroiters in general, we all become individual ambassadors of the city, always talking about and putting on and representing. And, the people who've been here forever, we've never seen, Detroit as a pejorative. And so it's really, the fact that I am getting the platform, and I will continue to have other platforms outside of this. I'm always going to put on and shine and make Detroit proud.
I love that so much. So just thinking about what you just said, just hitting on that really quickly, gentrification and the changing face of the city. We've seen it everywhere. We continue to see it everywhere. In what ways are you using art and your creativity to bring awareness and to bring those communities together?
By actually purchasing commercial real estate to preserve Black space and to, think about what Black design is. I mean, design is basically being used to eliminate and exclude in the city. And so you can go to some places and don't see, any Black Detroiters, and we're the Blackest city in the nation, and it really doesn't make any sense. So that is what I'm actively doing is, putting, I'm invested in the city of Detroit. And so now it's just really, time to let everybody know and see what I'm capable of.
Yes. So my last thing to you before I let you go is just about the exhibit this Sunday, the opening. Just let people know what they need to know about what's happening this Sunday at DIA.
Well, it's hard to say. Like, I really want y'all to see. I'm really not trying to put nothing, in your head about it. But, I am classically trained as a metalsmith. I make jewelry, and now the jewelry is large. It's human scale. And pull up on me and come dressed. I mean, it's called 7 Mile, Illinois. That is the call for the fashion as well. So please pull up and look fly as possible.
Come in your best drip. Come head to toe dressed down. That's the Detroit thing. Tiff Massey creates and works in jewelry, sculpture, performance, video, music, immersive art environments, and she has a new exhibit opening up at the DIA this Sunday titled Tiff Massey, 7 in Illinois. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, I can't wait to see it. And, I think about that. I'm from Joy in Southfield. That's how I say it, too.
That's
so just those two cross streets,
yeah.
It's just in my mind. So Detroit right now. Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. Take care.
It's the Metro on 101.9 WDET, and coming up, we'll talk about some Cinco de Mayo celebrations happening in Southwest Detroit all throughout the weekend. Keep it locked right here as we continue.
Welcome back to the Metro on 101.9 WDET FM. I'm Tia Graham.
And I'm Nick Austin. And earlier we were speaking about the origins of Cinco de Mayo as we prepare for the holiday coming up this weekend, how it came about and how it's changing over time. But now we want to talk about some of the festivities happening right here in Detroit.
Today through Sunday, there will be a celebration of Latinx music, art, and culture all around Southwest Detroit. And to discuss it now, we have Michael Reyes. He is the co-founder and director of We Are Culture Creators, which is hosting this weekend's events. Michael, welcome to the Metro.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, happy to have you here because we got into a little bit of the history, but like I said, and like we were talking about, really big celebrated in terms of what's happening here in America, actually more celebrated, it would seem, than generally in Mexico. So for you, when you think about Cinco de Mayo and the traditions in Southwest specifically, what do you think about?
Yeah, so I think we get a lot of conversation about Cinco de Mayo being this Americanized, kind of bastardized holiday. And for us as Chicanos or, Mexicans that were raised in the United States for generations, for me, it was the first time I ever flew a Mexican flag, honestly, like in public, right?
Wow.
I grew up in Saginaw, so that's, really where I grew up. And we have a long history there in Saginaw as well, just like, Grand Rapids and other cities across the state. But in Detroit specifically, Southwest is the heart of Latino culture, right, in Michigan, and it's the heartbeat. And, we have a historic parade, which is run by the Mexican Patriotic Committee. And they do a great job of, organizing that every year, right? And so what they give us an opportunity for as another organization, we're kind of a younger org, just to be able to build off that history that they do. They have a festival that takes place on 21st Street over near like Verner in that area, Bagley. And that's the more traditional festival, right? And we all grew up kind of seeing that space. And so for us, as we are culture creators and Fiesta Vibes, which is our other kind of partner organization, we wanted to do something that was geared more towards Gen Z, more towards like maybe some of the younger millennials. And so we created this like 3-4 day festival called, Fiesta Detroit. And just to give you an example, yesterday we did an event with Baby Tron, right? Historically, you're not going to do an event around Cinco de Mayo with an artist like Baby Tron or Sada Baby. But we have this merging of culture, right? We're in the blackest city in America, one of the blackest cities. And so our proximity to Black culture also is really important for our Cinco de Mayo festival. Like last year, one of our headliners was Curtis Roach, right? Who's a really well-known artist in Detroit. And so we have 3 or 4 days of actual like music events in non-traditional Latin spaces. So like, for instance, today we have a wrestling event at Big Pink, followed by Fiesta House, which is our Latin house event. Here we are in Detroit, right? The home of techno, the home of like EDM and that sort of music that doesn't really get that credit. But there was also a lot of Latino folks that are really into house music, that are really into electronic music. And so we've been filling that gap by filling spaces like Big Pink, like El Club, spaces like Spotlight and Marble Bar, right? Yeah. And those aren't necessarily Latino spaces. It's always funny when we book events across the country because we produce all over the world. We produce events everywhere, and but based in Detroit. And, we'll be like, oh, we want to do this venue. Somebody will say, oh, that's not a Latino venue. And like, that's the point, right? Is for us to be able to open up these spaces. And as part of our nonprofit is to help artists of color have access and equity in music, art, and culture. And what does that mean? Just to be able to have mentorship opportunities, professionalizing. And so Cinco de Mayo for us is just another space for us to allow our young folks to hit stages, to find opportunities, to network, and to build in the city with the entire city, right, converging amongst our events.
So that is this weekend. So it's going to start today, goes all the way through Sunday, which is Cinco de Mayo, May 5th.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about, of course, the artists that are going to be present there, the food trucks that are going to be on location as well, and just some of the things that people can do together walking around in Southwest this weekend.
So Saturday, just really quick, we have the Brakemen. We have a free event. Which is, right there in Parker's Alley. So we're going to be taking over downtown. And then we also have Marble Bar, which is a more focused event on house and Latin house. But Sunday is really like the jewel, right? It's the gem. So Sunday we'll take over El Club as well as the Culture House. Those are both at 4114 Verner. And you can see our Culture House, which is our nonprofit house, will be open with vendors. We have about, right now, we have a lot of vintage vendors, clothing. We really focus on art. So we have artists putting their artwork out. Food-wise, there's basically a 10-block radius that you can just kind of walk. It's not a closed street, but every business will be having a DJ, performers, bands. And for us, we really focused on the talent that is in Detroit, right? And so we have featured artists that can perform anything from hip-hop to R&B to neo-soul and to traditional Mexican music, from corridos to cumbia. And it's really just a festival celebrating the culture of our city. And when you think about, like, we have this venue called La Jaliscencia, which will be serving tacos all day. Yeah. They have vendors. They're going to have a DJ, music, and you can walk right down to our club or the Culture House, or you can walk down to the festival on 21st Street. And really, it's just to show our city what our culture is all about.
And
right?
I was going to say, because we're up on time here, my last thing to you is just the culture there and the love for your culture and just being able to represent.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Michael Reyes, co-founder and director of We Are Culture Creators. Michael, once again, we're running up on time here, but you gave us what we needed, and we know what we're doing this weekend. We're going to Southwest Detroit. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
It's the Metro here on 1019 WDET. That was Tia Graham. I'm Nick Austin, and that's going to do it for this edition of the Metro, May 3rd. You can listen to recent episodes online at WDET.org, and make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
The show is produced by Sam Corey, David Lyons, and Jack Philbrandt, and our engineer is Nate Bender.
The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. If you like what you hear and want to support the Metro, consider becoming a member at WDET.org/donate.
This is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great weekend, and may the 4th be with you.